Hi, I'm Michael Jones. I'm one of the pastor teachers at the Orange View Church of Christ in Orange County, California. The state government here has declared a state of emergency due to the coronavirus event and has requested everyone to practice what they call social isolation. So keeping with that, today I'm broadcasting from deep under the sea inside a submarine as I try to do my part to stay away from others and stop the spread of the virus. I'll continue looking for other remote locations in the days ahead to broadcast from. Today I actually want to join the disciples as they were on the sea too. The Sea of Galilee. I want to take us back to Luke chapter 8, where we read this account starting in verse 22. One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him and said, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid, and they marveled, and said to one another, "Who is this, that he commands even the winds and the water to obey him?" Believing they were about to die, the disciples, who many of which were fishermen before they began their walk with Jesus, were very afraid and frightened. They saw the storm coming up upon them, and they thought that their lives truly were in danger. Mark brings this up in Mark chapter 4 and verse 38, where they also question the compassion and care of Jesus. It says that they awoke him and said to him, "Master, do you not care that we perished?" The story is told of a postal worker who finds an unstamped, poorly written envelope addressed to God. He opens it and discovers it's from an elderly lady, distressed because $100 of her grocery money had been stolen. She'll be without food until the first of the month. Concerned that the old woman would be hungry, the postal worker takes up a collection for her from her fellow co-workers and comes up with $96. They then deliver that to her the very next day through the mail. A week later, the worker recognizes the same writing on another envelope addressed to God. He opens it and read this: "Dear God, thank you for the $100 you sent me. I would have gone hungry without it. Your faithful servant, Martha. P.S. It was about $4 short, but that was probably because of those thieves down at the post office." The disciples were making the same kind of mistake that this elderly woman was. In their supplication, they accused Jesus of not caring for them, when in fact he cared for them quite a bit. How often it is that we accuse God for not caring when he is in fact really the source of our blessings. We blame him for our defeats and our diminished blessings. We accuse him of liking others and not us, and not loving us and being cruel to us. Sometimes we even blame God for wars and disease and disasters and say it's all his fault. Just because you go through a storm doesn't mean that God is unconcerned about you. That's a terrible assumption. Stop blaming God or other people for problems that you may be going through. Realize that some of your problems might be the result of problems that you created on your own. Sometimes you just make bad choices, and the consequences potentially could be overwhelming to you. In Psalm 68 and verse 19, the psalmist said, "Blessed be the Lord, who loads us daily with benefits, even the God of our salvation." We should note the blessings that we receive from the Lord. Notice also in this passage that Jesus was way more concerned about the disciples than he was about the storm. He looked at the disciples and recognized that they were very much afraid. They were in a state of fear. But at least they went to the right person with their concerns. They went to Jesus with their fear. In Psalm 107, the psalmist says, "Then they cry out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brings them out of their distresses. He calms the storm so that its waves are stilled." Where do you go when you're in trouble? Think about your own life. Do you go to the Lord with your concerns and your fears? Do you cast all your anxieties on God, as the scriptures ask? Or do you go to some other source to try to find relief for your discomfort? Some of the things that people commonly go to might be addictions. Sometimes they appeal to things that are not going to solve their problems, but instead make them worse. Instead of doing that, I'd encourage you to do exactly what the scripture says and cast your anxieties on the Lord, for he cares for you. There are a number of benefits to the Christian when we do what the scripture says and we cast our anxieties on the Lord, coming to him in our times of need. For one thing, 1 John chapter 5 says that our prayers are answered, which is an incredible thing for sure. Here's what it says, starting in verse 14. "Now this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. Well, as this passage concludes, we read Jesus asking the disciples a simple question: where's your faith? That's a good question for us to consider today. Where's your faith? Where is it that you're building your foundation on? What are your hopes, your belief, your future being built upon? Some have put their future in false gods or their own self-righteousness to get them into heaven. That's a big mistake. Some build their confidence on material possessions, but it's very easy to lose those. Storms, disasters, business crashes, stock market crashes, all these will ruin your material assets quickly. Some people put their trust in politicians. Nothing, perhaps, is more flimsy and disappointing than to trust in government for all your needs. Some put their confidence in their own personal abilities, but these too can dwindle overnight. If you want to put your faith and confidence in something that will not fail, learn to lean upon the Lord. That will never set you back. In Hebrews 11 and verse 6, we're reminded there that without faith it is impossible to please God. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, and he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That's what I would encourage you today. Put your trust and confidence in the Lord. Go to him in your time of need. He'll never let you down. Well, I hope our time today has been helpful and useful to you. I'll come back again tomorrow with another encouraging word from the Scriptures.